There's a conference coming up next summer focusing on the work of Alfred North Whitehead. It's taking place in Claremont, California, at the Claremont Graduate School. And while it's focused on Whitehead, it's also about a whole wider set of ideas and of practices. So the conference itself is called Seizing an Alternative Towards an Ecological Civilization. So we're trying to draw upon Whitehead in order to find a new way forward beyond modernization into ecologization, as the Whiteheadian sociologist Bruno Latour would put it. So I'm organizing a track in this conference, which is really, it's huge. There's 12 sections and 70 tracks distributed among those sections. And I'm organizing a track in a section focusing on humanity's alienation from nature. And in particular, my track will look at the so-called late modern period, that is where we find ourselves today, and the basically reductionistic and monistic materialism that nowadays holds sway over the intellectual elites of our society. I think in America there's a sizable majority with a great political influence who seems to believe that science is a sort of devil's trick, kind of idol worship, and that really the Bible tells us how the earth and the universe came to be, and we should just be really suspicious of anyone who tries to tell us that actually God didn't create this universe and that in fact it randomly, or at least purposelessly, evolved over the course of 14 billion years, give or take. So we find ourselves in that situation, right, where there's this culture war between a kind of reductionistic materialism, a kind of reductive monism that is believed and upheld and defended by the intellectual elite, and then you have this sort of creationist fundamentalism that is believed and upheld by the non-educated, more conservative, biblical people who there's really a sizable portion of them in the United States and a sizable portion of them throughout the Arab world. Europe seems to be generally free of this. I think South America has a very different form of more shamanic, indigenous religion. So it's really only the United States and American Christianity and Islam, fundamentalist Islam, that have a problem with science and rationality and so on. It's an interesting social phenomenon, right? So I think, though, that too many people are being hijacked by this dichotomy between an eliminative or reductionistic materialism and a fundamentalist creationism, a biblically literalist creationism on the other hand. There's a different kind of conversation that we could be having, and I think, my track, the presenters in my track, are going to try to start having a different kind of conversation, and instead of focusing on literalist creationism or literalist materialism, we're going to try to talk about the way that, yes, the universe is intelligently orchestrated, but that this orchestration, this design, this intelligence is not somehow outside of or beyond the universe or greater than the universe or outside the universe. There is no transcendent creator of this finite creation. there is instead a process of creativity, which includes, you know, what we can describe as a divine sort of spiritual element, and also includes what we could call a natural physical element. And these are just two sides of the same ongoing process. And when we get overly literal, overly dogmatic, when our thought crystallizes a little too much and rusts, we start thinking in dichotomies. We sever the circuitry of the polar relationship between opposites, and instead end up with a duality. Um, and we needn't end up with a duality where it's either the universe is intelligently designed or the universe is, emergent out of matter, out of sort of chaotic interaction between particles in some sort of a spatio-temporal manifold. Um, we can think space-time as itself ensouled. We can overcome the dichotomy um, by talking about a universe that is self-organizing, where that universal organization is in fact best described scientifically as an organism. It's best thought of as a living creature, right? That is giving form, intelligent form, beautiful, harmonious form to itself. And that it does in fact make sense to talk about God, at least if we're going to remain civilized. We're going to need God talk. Human beings are religious animals. It's just a matter of what sort of religion we create with each other, and I don't just mean with other human beings in our human societies, but the sorts of religions we create with the wider community of life on Earth, with all of the other creatures that call this planet home. There are rituals, religious, spiritual rituals that extend far beyond human society. The Earth itself, is inhabited by non-human spiritual beings with moral value, with purposes of their own, independent of our human purposes. So instead of a human nature dichotomy where all value and purpose and meaning is somehow miraculously created inside the human brain because of human language or whatever sort of story a materialist would want to tell. Instead of seeing it as utterly alien to an otherwise mechanical universe, I think we have to begin to imagine a universe wherein the human being is an inevitability, wherein, intelligent life is written woven into the texture of this space-time process of creativity from the very beginning, and that it doesn't just accidentally emerge 13.8 billion years into an otherwise random process. We can think the universe as ensouled, and I think that's how we're going to get out of our late modern situation. We have to re-inhabit the universe as though it were alive, which is not to say that we are to become religious in the fundamentalist sense that Christians and others will talk about. It's instead a form of religion that doesn't exclude traditional religion, but that sort of recenters human attention away from the transcendent to the, as Thomas Berry called it, the inscendent, the immanent, but not the immanent as the merely immanent, the immanent as the sort of self-organizing, ensouled universe that guides itself, that steers itself, that organizes itself, and doesn't need to be designed from beyond. I think that's the kind of religion that we need to be imagining at this point, not the traditional sort. So I think, sort of to pay homage to Whitehead, but also to lay out some important ideas that will shape this this conference and my track in particular. In the next video, I'm going to read a few pages from Whitehead's book, Adventure of Ideas.